The number one misconception about sales that most business owners miss. In this episode of the Bill Hauser Podcast, we're going to break down the misconception that makes the majority of business owners broke. Most business owners make less than what they made when they had a job. And that's the truth. And it's also sad because when you start a business, you do way more than one job. You do 1,000 jobs and you make less money for it. And that is the majority of business owners. We're talking of the 33, 36 million businesses in America. We're talking somewhere around 28 million of those businesses don't make the money that they should be making. And it all, I believe, stems from this one misconception about sales. And I'm at my new place here in Puerto Rico. So you see a new background today. We just moved here, 7 or 8 days ago. So more info on that in future episodes. And I'm going to start with a story. A member of my team brought up a few days ago that they thought by us selling our services at one of our events that we could come off a little pushy, right? And this is just a little microcosm of the belief of society around sales, right? That if we sell a product or service of ours, that we could be labeled as pushy, we could be slimy salespeople, and this has a misconception embedded within it, and that is that our product is not going to improve someone's life or improve someone's business, right? So if you sell business services, the only reason that you would feel pushy selling a product or service in business services is if you didn't believe wholeheartedly that your product was going to improve someone's business. Similarly, if you're not doing business services and other industry, you don't believe it's going to improve their life. So this really is a self-esteem issue around the value of your product or service, right? And your product very well could improve someone's life or business forever. It could have a transformational impact on someone, right? But the real misconception lies within the belief system of the owner and the belief system of your team, right? So if you have a team and the business owner believes that we don't want to be pushy, we want to be relationship based in everything that we do. Well, there's a time to be relationship based and there's a time to tell someone, hey, it's time to move forward. This is going to benefit your business. If you don't have any reservations, I'm going to suggest we move forward today. Now, is that pushy? No, I don't think so, because I believe in what I'm saying. Is it direct? Yeah, it's direct. And yeah, it's more transparent than saying something what most people say at the end of a sales call is, do you have any questions? Right? Well, they don't call this a sales call. They call it anything but a sales call, right? Consultation, free, blah, blah, analysis, whatever. And when we're insecure about asking for a decision at the end of a call, at the end of an event, however you're selling a product or service, we always end with this question. If you have any questions, reach out to me, or do you have any questions? That is not direct, right? You are being indirect and you are not being transparent. If you believe it's in someone's best interest to buy your product or service, it's your duty and obligation, right, to tell that person that they should move forward with your service and to persist through objections, okay? When we moved down here to Puerto Rico, we had to buy a car in our first 2 days here. We go to the Mercedes-Benz dealership. We find a Mercedes that we really like. And we get to the end, do the test drive. We come back to the office, and the salesperson who brought us on the test drive, he, starts asking us what we're thinking. Are we ready to make a decision on the car? Very directly. And so he did get the first half of it right. He did ask for a formal decision from us, like, are you ready to move forward with the car, which I respected. And I met that with objections, right? I started saying, well, price this or features that, right? But he could sense that it was BS. He could sense that I was 85, 90% there, right? And so this car salesman asked some Socratic questions, right? And allowed me to come to the conclusion that I was just being a wimp and this car was an absolute perfect fit for my family. And we were absolutely stupid for not just getting the car. Now, I could have went and thought about it and reflected on it for 10 days. And, you know, my family wouldn't have had a car in those 10 days, which is kind of urgent when you move to a new place and you don't have transportation. But nonetheless, I knew the car was already the right fit car for us. I knew it was exactly what we needed to do. So this salesperson persisted and he turned up the sales intensity a little bit, right? And in maybe, 7 minutes or so of him turning up the dial and saying, hey, listen, you told me X, Y, and Z was a perfect fit for this car. What changed, right? You told me this, you needed this space for your daughter. What changed? You told me you wanted a hybrid so you could save on gas and you could, because we got a hybrid. What changed, right? You said you wanted it this size. What changed? You said you wanted it this color. What changed, right? And after 7 minutes or so of him persisting past my uncertainty, I made a decision and we bought the car and it was the right decision. So thank you, car salesman, right, for persisting with me and being there with me through the sales process. Thank you for believing in your product and believing in the fact finding that you did with me when you asked me a bunch of questions about what I wanted and what was a perfect fit car for my family. Thank you for listening to me and thank you for aligning me with the right car. And then when I gave you some objections and I gave you some pushback, thank you for persisting with me. Thank you for sitting down with me and getting me to make the decision you knew was best for me, right? So as someone who respects the art of sales, I respect that this car salesman did this. But think about what most people think when they go to car dealerships, right? They think of this slimy, pushy feeling. Well, the only reason it's slimy is A, if you're not skilled at selling, right? Like if you're actually begging people to buy your product and it's a product that's not a good fit for them, right? That would be a bad sales process. Or B, it's pushy if you just have a general bad product, right? But it can't feel pushy if you believe in the quality of your product and you know that your product meets the needs of the person that is about to buy your product. So we were having another conversation about, the customer is always right, okay? And we were having this conversation with a member of my team, and we're talking about, the customer is always right. The customer told us they didn't like when we did X, and we were talking about this workshop that we do for some of our clients, and my response to that was, if we only listen to what customers tell us they want, then Henry Ford would have invented a faster horse, okay? Because before the car was invented, everyone was saying faster horse, less maintenance on horse, right? That's what people were saying. So if you take what people say as their feedback at face value, you can't innovate on their behalf, which Jeff Bezos says is one of the top principles that's made Amazon successful. Yeah, we want to listen to customer needs, but we don't want to take them at complete face value. We don't want to just say, oh, this person said they need X, let me give it to them, right? So for example, in my car dealership experience, that would have been me saying, let me think about it. And had that guy just taken it at face value, he would have said, okay, the customer told me he must think about it. I will let him think about it, right? But no, he knew that the words I said did not match my emotional state. My emotional state was 85% there to make a decision. I was right at the finish line. He could sense it. So my words did not align with my reality. And buyers are liars. Now, it doesn't mean you're a bad person, right? If you've ever bought a product or didn't buy a product and lied in the sales process, which 100% of human beings have done, right? I need to talk it over with so-and-so. No, you're just uncertain about the decision. I don't have the money. Is that true? Does your credit card truly not have the limit for the down payment of it? Or is it just general uncertainty, right? Like How many times have you given an objection or appearing as a condition, which I'll explain in a second, and it wasn't fully true, right? And that's what people do when they get anxious in the sales process. So the best sales belief to have is I am going to persist with every customer or potential client that is going to sign up with my service. I'm going to persist with them. And if I know it is a fit for them, I'm going to do everything in my power to get them to purchase the solution. Because here's another thing. If they never buy your solution, there's no chance that their problem gets solved unless they sign up with a competitor of yours, right? So we're not in the feel-good business in what we do, right? And in what most people do, you shouldn't be in the feel-good business, because feel-good doesn't mean decision made, especially in the sales process. So that's why I say whenever a sales call ends with overabundance of positivity, I think that call did not go well. I think that was a bad sales interaction, because when you get to the real emotional meat of a conversation, it's usually not all positive emotions. It's real talk, right? It's emotionally unfiltered talk, which is messy. It's not all positive. Here's how a positive ending of a call sounds. Yeah, this all sounds real great. Would love to talk to you later about it. We'll follow up soon. That's positive. That's happy slappy. That's, yeah. Woohoo. The call went great, right? No, the call went shit, okay? The call was horrendous because the person didn't feel enough trust with you to be honest with you, so they sugarcoated and they just said, it sounds great, man. Really great. Really like you, man. We'll follow up soon. Yeah, it's cool, man. Yeah. Bull, okay? That is not how they're feeling. What they're feeling is conflict avoidant, and the reason that they're feeling conflict avoidant is because they don't trust you, which means you didn't build trust in the sales process. Someone who trusts you at the end of a sales process will say, listen, I really respect you. Here's our situation. That's not positive. That's not happy slappy. That's not high-fiving, okay? That's, hey, this is real talk. Especially the higher the transaction value, the more you want to get to that real place at the end of a sales conversation. Tim Ferriss once said, author of 4 Hour Workweek, that your life outcomes are in direct proportion to the number of uncomfortable conversations you have, right? So if you want bigger outcomes in your life, you have to have more uncomfortable conversations, real conversations, not passive conversations. So how do we get more directness in our sales process? It means we have to be more direct. We have to be more transparent so that gets reciprocated to us. So let's go back to this number one misconception. Okay, the number one misconception is that I don't want to be pushy. Sales is a bad thing. And it really, if I were to put it all into one phrase, I don't feel like someone's life will improve as a result of buying my product or service. I am not sold on the product or service. Therefore, I can't be pushy around the product or service. So I'm okay with people, skimping out and not making decisions, right? As salespeople, we are consultants, right? Our job is to help someone make a decision to improve their lives, first and foremost. Now, think about this. McKinsey and Company, okay? McKinsey, one of the biggest management consulting companies in the world. McKinsey gets paid multiple seven-figure contracts from some of the biggest brands in the world, okay? And McKinsey goes in, and it's basically a quote-unquote sales process. It's very interesting. If you look at what management consulting is, it's very similar to a traditional sales process. It starts with fact-finding, where they do all this research, they gather all this analytical data, they dive deep into the business to come up with data and pockets of opportunity. That's fact-finding. That's just like on a sales call. The first part of every sales process is fact-finding, right? You ask questions to what the person needs, what's most important to them, what problem they're looking to solve, what outcome they're looking to get, right? Fact finding. This is what management consultants get paid millions and millions of dollars to do, right? And that's what salespeople do as the first part of the sales process. Once we've collected enough information, then we propose a solution. This is what management consultants do. They propose a solution. Hey, based on fact A, fact B, fact C, okay, we've looked at all this different information. We've dissected everything. Here's our recommendation, right? Now, the problem with management consulting companies is typically once they make a recommendation, people don't implement everything that's recommended. So that's why the management consulting companies, once they make a recommendation, they say, hey, if you want us to help you execute this, we'll do it for you, right? Well, isn't that exactly what sales is, right? We do fact finding, we come up with a recommendation on what the person needs, and then we say, hey, we'll do this for you. It sounds identical to me. So why is it a bad thing that the sales process is identical to the consulting process? What do both of these things have in common? It's the directing of decision making. A management consultant goes into a business, gathers facts, makes a recommendation, and then offers to implement it for them. Well, what is that middle step? Offers a recommendation. It's a line of decisions. You should do this. You should optimize this department like this. You should do this expense, optimization. Blah, 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 blah. Decision. Well, isn't that exactly what we're supposed to do in the sales process? We're supposed to get someone to make a decision. If they don't make a decision, how do we benefit their life? It's impossible. So our job as salespeople and for our teams is to help people make the right decision. So we could recommend to someone that, hey, you need X. Oh yeah, and we sell X. We could recommend that to them. But if the person doesn't implement or make a decision on what we recommended, what benefit have we provided to them? We have provided no benefit. If anything, we've wasted their time because we spent all this time learning about their problems, all this time making a recommendation, and then what? We just give up when they say, oh, I need to think about it? It's absolutely, it makes me sick to my stomach because 99% of people who have ever been involved in a sales process, they have this negative association to it because they don't understand selling is serving. Selling is helping someone make a decision to improve their life or business, okay? If you can't get them to make a decision, then you can't be of service to them. So it's your duty to get people to make a decision. So this is why one of the concepts I love in sales is know your no. K-N-O-W, your N-O. Know your no. Know the value of getting a no. Because most people don't want to hear no. Most people want to hear wishy-washy. Yeah, we'll follow up soon, dude. Cool, man. Yeah, we'll call you in 10 weeks, That feels better than hearing no. Because there's hope. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe it'll say yes. You're saying there's a chance, But the problem is, if you don't get no's, then you don't get a high proportion of yeses. Because here's how it works. Let's say for every 10 people that you make a proposal to, 5 of them say yes, and 5 of them meander off into an abyss and don't ever make a decision, right? Well, what if by persisting for those other 5, 2 of those 5 end up saying yes, and 3 of those 5 end up saying no? Well, now you've gone from 5 people saying yes to 7 people saying yes, and 3 saying no. That would be amazing. That's a 70% close rate. That would be spectacular. And the 30%, I'm fine with them saying no. What I'm not fine with is them meandering into the abyss of indecision, indecisive isle, okay? The island of indecision. That's where I'm not okay with them living for the rest of their lives. So I'll do everything in my power to get them to say no. I can't take a maybe, though. I just can't because I know I'm letting down their families. I'm wasting their time. I'm literally doing them a disservice by not getting them to say no. I love when people say, hey, Bill, I've heard out everything you've said, or a member of my sales team. We have 25 people on our sales team. So I don't do individual sales anymore, but I did for a long time. I was, number one salesperson at yellowpages.com and net business the year I was there in the whole country. And I've been through hundreds and hundreds of sales conversations myself. And I always love when people clearly say no. I respect it. And when I believe it, when I believe they are truly saying no for a valid reason, that maybe they've educated me on something I was unaware of, right? I love it because it shows they put critical thought into what I'm proposing. I made a proposal to them and they have thought through it and they've said, you know what, Bill, we are not going to move forward with this, and this is why. We thought through this, we thought through that, we have this resource here, we have this there, we have this new plan happening, and we are not going to be moving forward with this. Boom, done. As long as I believe the logical nature of why they said no, we're moving on. Now, in a perfect world, you want to be the one saying no. That's where you become excellent at the sales process. Is the 7 in 10 people who say yes, okay, 5 of them said yes relatively easily. 2 of them, you had to work through some of their objections to get them to say yes for the right decision for their business. But you should have vetted out. For the other 3 that said no, you should have known that they were going to say no. And you should have told them in your recommendation, you shouldn't move forward with this. Then technically your close rate would be 100%. Because of the 7 people you recommended you should move forward with us, all 7 of them move forward. Of the 3, because you asked them such good questions in the fact-finding process, you already identified, 15 to 30 minutes into the sales conversation, this person is not a fit for what we sell. So why are you waiting for them to say no? Right? Step 1 is to get some people to say no. Step 2 is for you to always know the no's. To always know, hey, this person is a no. They told me this, they told me this, they told me that. I'm going to fact check and validate that these 3 things they told me are true. And then I'm going to say, listen, based on the 3 things you shared with me, this is not going to be a good fit for you. Call us back in 12 months. Call us back in 6 months. Now you've gained control of the sales process. Instead of them saying, I'll call you back, you've said, I'll call you back in 6 to 12 months because you're not a fit for the service at this point in time. What do you think's going to happen with some of those 3 people? At least one of them is going to go, what? They're going to go, wait, this person is telling me no? They're going to come back to you and they're going to say, wait a second. Can we work out something? Right? Because people don't like to be turned down. So you may actually get an additional sale from that as long as you are presented new information that actually does make your product a fit for them, right? So if I know my solution is going to benefit someone's life, then I am willing to go through any objection. I'm willing to follow up as long as is needed. I'm willing to invest as much time and energy as I possibly can in getting that person to move forward. And I don't care if that is perceived as pushy, or if it's perceived as pushy, it means I have to up level my skill set. I have to become more emotionally intelligent in my communication. I have to get better at my fact finding. I have to speak to the client's needs better. But pushy is really a reflection of lack of skill set rather than a reality. The other thing about pushy is the only reason that they feel pushy is A, you're bad at selling, you're not emotionally intelligent, you're communicating like trash, and you're making someone feel pushy, right? Or pushed. Or B, their resistance is being perceived as a response to pushiness. Let me explain. If they already signed your contract, they wouldn't feel pushiness anymore. So part of the feeling of being quote unquote pushy comes from the fact that they haven't made a decision and they're feeling anxiety in their body, and they decide to label that emotion of anxiety as this guy's being pushy. That's why I feel anxiety. No, you feel anxiety, assuming the person selling to you is skilled and emotionally intelligent. You're feeling the anxiety because you haven't made a decision. Jeff Bezos says it best. He said, stress is simply a reflection of something you have not created a plan to solve. It's a reflection. When I feel stress, it means there's something in my life that is not to my expectation, and I have not yet put together a plan to solve it, or I'm not taking action on solving it. That's what stress is, right? And as soon as I start taking action to solve a problem in my life or my business, all of a sudden I don't feel stressed anymore because I'm in the process of solving it. So how can I feel stressed? I'm too busy doing the actions to undo that stress, to solve the problem. So stress is just a byproduct of the things we're not taking action on in our lives. So when a prospect or a potential client feels stressed, is that just a sign of the fact that they're being indecisive and they're kind of penalizing themselves with the emotional tax of not having made a decision? So the salesperson who's emotionally intelligent and skilled should know, hey, this person is going to go through some emotional ups and downs through the sales process because they're going to have a tough time making a decision on a purchase of this size. And if the salesperson can accept that and go back to the basics of knowing my product is going to benefit their life or business, I'm willing to persist through as many objections as possible. I'm going to be as emotionally intelligent as I can through the process, but that I'm not going to give up just because I want to be conflict avoidant, because I'm letting down their family, I'm letting down their future if they don't buy my product, right? And if I believe my company is better than my competitors, and I let them get off the phone without making a decision, are you really going to send them into the shark-infested waters of your competitors? How is that beneficial, right? And just think, they're going to have to go through another full fact-finding process. They're going to have to share all their life story again to someone else as to what they want, right? And what their problems are. So you're not just putting them into shark-infested waters of your competitors, but you're also wasting their time even more because you're allowing them to go into someone else's sales process all over again, right? So let's say they object on price, right? Great, let me ask you, are you looking at this as to the value it's going to provide for you or the costs that you can save from it? That's a very emotionally intelligent objection handler, right? Oh no, we're looking at this this is going to make $1 million for our company. Great, then why are we talking about the $50,000 investment? What's the concern there? You just told me that you're looking at this to make $1 million for your business. So if you don't have any other reservations, I'm going to suggest we move forward if that's your only concern. Would you agree? Right? Is that pushy? No, it's factually true, right? Why would someone balk over a $50,000 price point if they're going to make $1 million in their business? The only reason they would balk on it is if they didn't believe they're going to get $1 million. Hence, it's a reflection of uncertainty. So the question should be around, let's talk about it. You just said you want to make $1 million from this. And if that was guaranteed, 50K would be nothing, right? Right? So what is it about making $1 million you don't believe this product's going to help you do? Because that's the real objection. It's always a value objection. It's never a price objection. It's always, I don't believe this is going to work, rather than the price. So price is almost always a myth as an objection. Need to think about it. Need to think about it is the most common used term for an objection. Need to think about it. Need to think about it could be 1,000,001 things. No, you don't need to think about it. You need to make a decision, and that's what I'm here to help you do. So let's talk about the trade-offs of the decision, right? I can't provide value to you if a decision isn't made around this, right? So let's talk about what are going to be the pros and cons. Let me help you make a decision here, whether it's yes or no. Is that pushy? No, it's serving them. We're serving the person, right? And you've got to do this from a place, we've all got to do this from a place of service. Selling is serving. The people who make the most sales serve the most people. It's very simple. It's called reciprocity. If you are of service to every person that comes in, to your business as a lead, as an opt-in, as a consultation, if you are operating from a place of help, give, serve, that's going to reciprocate. People want to work with people who unfiltered, who have no filter on the abundance of help they want to provide to every single person that comes into their fold, right? So we've created a sales training university for this exact reason that we use on our own internal team that's allowed us to build a multi 8-figure business. And we give this sales training to our coaching clients with scripts and templates for every part of the sales process. We have a master sales script that we use that kind of encapsulates a lot of these techniques in one place. But I suggest you create your own master sales process. You can use ours to help you, but ultimately everyone needs to make their own sales process their own. We have to create our own proprietary way of recommending solutions to people and learning about their needs and aligning solutions with needs and doing it in a high confidence way where we get every single person that comes into our umbrella to make a decision. Selling is serving. Selling is not pushy unless you suck at sales, meaning your skill set's not good, or your product sucks. And if you're decent at sales and your product is amazing, you should never suscept yourself. You should never subscribe to the belief that sales is slimy or pushy, because it's going to do nothing but make you the 30 million or 28 million business owners who are making less than what they made during a job. Because for a business to exist, revenues must exist. What is another word for revenues? Sales. If your business does not make sales, you don't have a business, you have business documents. Anyone can create business documents. On LegalZoom, you can create an LLC, okay? But a business, in my book, is a business that's producing revenue. Revenue is sales. Therefore, sales is the lifeblood of your business, because without it, your business doesn't exist. So it's your ethical duty and obligation to sell your product or service to those that will benefit from it. And if you can do that and you can operate that belief through your entire company as you expand your team, you're going to make more money faster and you're going to build more wealth. I'll see you in the next episode. Stay great.